Coming at you from the Exodus headquarters in Ohio, let's jump right into today's episode.
We are live somewhere in Iowa. I'm not really even sure. I typed in the GPS, and we came down a dead-end road, and here we are with Scott Buckley. Thank you for inviting us in your home and doing a podcast with us.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to have you here. It's a pleasure to have you up here. So
yeah, we were at Southern Iowa. We were recording with Aaron and Greg from THP earlier. We told them we were headed this way, and they said, you'll be in for a good day, a good night of podcasting. So,
yeah, them guys are good guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for everyone who doesn't know you, I know you've been on a couple podcasts, and you've done some various different things. Who are you? Where are you from? And kind of what do you do for a living?
Scott Buckley. Originally lived all my life in Michigan. Moved to Iowa in 2009. I came here because of my job. I'm in residential construction. Kind of slowed down in Michigan, but my excuse to get out, that's 'cause my work slowed down. That was my excuse to get out here. I hunted here for years as a non-resident, and always said I wanted to retire here, and that was kind of my excuse. Work was really getting bad in that era, 2008, 2009. I moved out here in 2009, and business has been great, 3-4 times better than it ever was in Michigan, and of course the deer hunting has just been fantastic.
About 10 or 30 times better, probably.
Yeah, I had a hard time killing a 100-inch buck in Michigan. I only had 2-3 of them, and come out here and kind of like bump that up to the 160, 170 average. So it's been pretty good.
So you've been here for
11 years, I think it's been. This would be my 11th hunting season.
As a resident?
Yep, as a resident, yep.
Absolutely. So I know last year you had an incredible year as we were setting up all the equipment. It was kind of, I know Cameron and I were kind of like ooh and ah, all the different deer you have here. But the three you shot last year are actually in your farm, Southern Iowa. But 2 of them were on public ground.
Yes.
And then one of them was on farm that you own.
Yep.
So, and also when we were looking around at all these different deer, majority of them were from public ground. Or pretty much everything behind us here is in public.
Yep, these are all public here.
Got it. So we want to pick your brain on quickly of how do you if you pulled up a map of all the public ground in Iowa, what are some of the key features that you say, okay, I need to go and actually walk this and possibly put up some cameras?
I guess when I used to hunt here as a non-resident, I would just kind of pull up all the maps of Iowa. They said Southern Iowa, Northeastern Iowa. And I was looking more, but as a non-resident, you had to apply for zones, zone whatever, 1 through 9 or 10 they have. And I was looking for the most amount of property in a zone. The biggest tracts of land, biggest amounts of property, thousands of acres. So I kind of settled into an area in Southern Iowa. And from there, I used to come out and, I just got back then we had the public land at like Iowa Atlas. I had all the public land areas. And then I used to get, I think when I first started coming out here, we still had the topo maps. Area was just kind of, starting to take off then. But so I would just look at the biggest tracts of public land, I guess. The hardest to get to. That's kind of how I've always done it. I just picked areas that were, hard to get to, the deepest to go back, big tracks, and then I kind of went from there. Over the years, I've got to know, which ones are better. I've just got familiar with them because I've been here a while, but I guess that's basically, just I was always studying, I'd spend every night, just looking at maps and kind of deciding which areas and so yeah, I'd pick an area and then it was pretty much, well, beforehand, I'd pick an area like at home, or if I was in Michigan, I'd pick an area and I would just start marking all the spots. We didn't have Onyx maps back then. Now I use
Yeah.
that exclusively for everything. I mark everything. But back in the day, we just had maps. I'd order a topo map, and I think we just started. I think we were getting the aerials. Yeah, I was pulling them offline, and I was printing off aerial photos of all the places. I have piles of laminated aerial photos that Iowa Geological Society or something had these maps, and I'd print them off, and then I'd laminate them, and then I would just start marking, all the funnels, all the pinch points, places back in the rivers, and back then, I didn't use GPS or nothing. So then I'd come out when I was in Michigan. I'd come out in the springtime, like if the kids were on their spring vacation, I'd bring the kids out. And we just put boots on the ground for a week straight. We go to all these spots we marked on the map, look at them, mark them on the map, just take note of all that stuff. I'd have, we'd spend a week out here, and I'd have 20, 30 spots picked out in various spots in this public land. We didn't stick to one track. We'd pick one spot here, one spot. We wanted to be all over the place. If something didn't produce here, I could move to the next one. And that's basically how we used to do it. Nowadays, like I said, it's Onyx maps, and I go in and I just mark everything. But I could, me and the boy were out. That's what we've been really getting into Onyx this year. I've been actually increasing my cameras on public land because I can mark them. Don't have to worry about getting lost.
Forgetting about them.
I go on Onyx map and I mark a waypoint there. I can make it a trail camera, make it a certain color code, and some of the areas I'm in now, they got the footpaths on Onyx map. I just find that because me and the boy got lost here about a month and a half ago in a big state forest. I didn't think we was gonna make it out. It was getting dark, and we had a vicious thunderstorm coming in, and kind of my phone, some reason I don't know, wasn't working down low. Even though I had the maps downloaded, we made it out. I found one of my footpaths that I marked on Onyx just before dark, and it started raining. We found that footpath, and then we got out of there. And but I just used to do tons of research, and I was, I'd spend every night just looking at maps and picking areas, and then once I get to them, like hunting season, over the years, I could tell what areas are pressured, what areas aren't. Most areas I avoid the pressure, but there's some areas, they get a little pressure, but then they don't go back in deep enough. And I can, there's areas, I've killed some of these deer, that one right there, that one, them two right there, crossing a river. Like I run into some guys from Alabama on this public piece, and, they weren't seeing a lot, but I was crossing the river, and all I had was hip waders, it was only 3-4 feet. And that guy said, well, I really don't have the boots, I said, and I didn't encourage him to go get them, because I was going across the river and just seeing tons of bucks. It was just a matter of a couple hundred yards because all the pressure was on this side of the river. Nobody wanted to cross it. And, the bucks were just run right out of there. I crossed the river and just got into bucks every day, I know the hunting public talks about that a lot. They kayak into a lot of their spots, and you can really get a lot of access like that too.
So a lot of digital scouting or map scouting.
Yep.
How many cameras are you running right now on public ground? I know you have a handful of our cameras and a handful of a lot of other brands as well. But
Yep, I use a whole variety of cameras. For a year, before I bought my property 3 years ago, I was probably averaging 20 to 25 cameras a year on public. And I like I said, various pieces. I'd start putting them out, and back then I used to put them out Memorial Day. And now it's more probably closer to July, maybe end of June. Just a bunch of various pieces. And then as I checked them, I could kind of, get a feel where the big bucks were. And then, I'd kind of back off some spots if I wasn't getting bucks, and concentrate on other spots where, if there was some big ones.
Where are you placing those cameras on in June, July in the summer?
I used to back in the day. I run a little bit of mineral, but I'm kind of staying away just because of all the issues with it. I don't run as mineral like I used to. Nowadays, I've just that woodsmanship has picked up so much over the years. Now it's more trails. Let's say like a piece we went in the other day. There's a major creek corridor through the whole thing, and then there's little branches the creeks run off. Well, it's easy access this for us. I mean, it goes for miles, but it gives us a spot where we can just go up this creek, and then you see all the major deer crossings in the sand. They're pretty visible year round. You get in the big timber, sometimes them trails ain't as visible this time of year. But we get in them creek crossings where they're sandy and muddy. We've been placing a lot of cameras just on these trails looking down at the creeks. And and I got that idea from the hunting public too. We're placing them up more in trees this year.
Yeah.
We started to last year. I got lone wolf steps. I take a lone wolf step out, get up in the tree and, place it up 10, 12 feet. And I've had, we had a camera pull the other day. I had, two guys that were arrowhead hunting up the creek. They went by the camera 3 times, didn't even have a clue it was there. I had a forester, a lady forester. She's seen 2 of the cameras, but where I had them more up on trails where she was marking the trees. But the other 2 in the creek bottoms where she was she didn't see the camera. And we had another guy. It looked like a hunter. He didn't see the camera. And then I had another camera on the edge of a private. It was on public, but where it was going into a piece of private cornfield. And here comes this. He had to be a hunter because he had a saw in one hand and a camera strap and a camera on the other. And he kind of walked under the camera. You could see him looking around on the ground like where he wanted to go. And then he walked back out, looked around, and never looked up. And it's cut my. I've had so many people never even see the camera up in the air. But so yeah, that's and I bet I have. We probably got 25 cameras out at least on public this year. I would say if I'm after a certain deer. Last year I was after a really big deer, and
not one of the ones you killed.
No, no, this one was big.
As you killed, a couple 170-inch deer.
Yeah. So actually, I mean, some people. You guys are a camera company, so I hate to but I needed mass coverage of cameras, so I went out and bought some of them cheap Tascos from Walmart.
They serve a purpose.
Yeah, they did the purpose. They told me what was there. I guess I did have problems with them. Most of them serve the purpose. They took the picture. I was able to identify the deer, and I was able to just carpet bomb the area. After I killed my buck early November 5th. So I had all November to set cameras and try to find this big deer. And so I just carpet bombed the areas, where I seen them with these cameras. And they were cheap, but I had a lot of, I had issues. Like if the tree moved, they take thousands of pictures. Most of the cameras did all right, but I had a few. You could check it, and it was, 10,000 pictures and nothing. But
yeah.
So, I mean, they're not most dependable, but most of them serve the purpose, what I was after. And, so, yeah, it just depends. I run a lot of cameras. That's my major, I would say that's my major, asset for killing big deer is camera work.
Yeah.
That and boots on the ground, just constantly. I spend probably, how many weeks in a year? 52 weeks?
Yeah.
Probably, I wouldn't doubt if I'm in, I work a 7:30 to 5 job like everybody else. I'm my own boss. I take off maybe on a Friday or a day here and there, but I'm there every day. But yeah, I bet you I spend 45, 47 weekends a year in the woods. So
just exploring new ground.
Yeah. Just that's why. I mean, I got my own property, and that's been kept my hands setting that up the way I want it. But I'm still in that public. I just love to tromp hundreds and thousands of acres. It's just in my soul to explore and.
So you run a ton of cameras on a lot of different pieces of public that you probably identify on a map, says this might look good, walk in there, hang a camera, and then you are trying to find, I assume, a caliber of deer that you're interested in hunting. So once you do that, are you adding more cameras, or are you just going in and start hunting, or?
Depends on the year. Most bucks I've hunted over the year, sometimes I get one big one in a spot, but the thing that triggers me, if I get 2 or 3 big mature deer in one spot, then I'm not just hunting one
Particular deer.
one deer. That makes it tough. A lot of my years, I find 2 or 3 good bucks in one area, and then then I'm all over it, because then I know, if I can't find that one deer, I got a real good chance of one of these 3 big deer coming by me if I put the time in and, pick my spots wisely. So what was your question? I got lost.
Oh, no, this kind of what your process is after you find a buck that, or, area where there's it's holding multiple mature bucks.
I guess.
Well, I also assume with as much time as you're probably bouncing around from public piece to public piece probably daily during season.
Yeah. I mean, if something really big like last year shows up, I'll try it. I don't want to have that buck know I'm there. So, as I'm, like right now, me and Cody set cameras, and, it was 6 weeks where I went in and checked them. And in the one spot, it might be going on 8 weeks, but so I'm not going in there every couple weeks. But if I find a big deer, kind of let's say if I would have found a really big one, we did pretty good one a couple weeks ago. So when I go back, I did place some cameras in that same area but further back. But when I go back in a week or two to check that camera, I might put a few more and not, like along the creek where I'm not leaving much scent or sign. I might put a few more, what is it, the middle of August. So I like to check most of my cameras, especially in the areas where I know the big ones are, because I don't know if these are going to be summer bucks. They're just in there for the summer, and then they shed their velvet, and they're gone. You don't see them again. They might pass through in the rut. I've noticed a lot of deer might stay in them same areas, but then, just as many might take off, and you don't see them again. So I like to check all these cameras again, like towards the 3rd week of September, where I got big deer. And if them same deer, if they made it through that first couple of weeks of September where they're losing their velvet and they're transitioning into other areas, if them same bucks are still there on my cameras, then I know, 3rd week of September, let's say if I check cameras, they should be there for that October 1st, that first week or two. And then come the rut, they just go haywire. They're going to be in the same areas, but, you can't predict them. So, if I get them nice bucks in September, one in there, then I'm going to go in there. And that buck right there.
This one?
Yep. That one, I had pictures of him. I had pictures of him the year before. I didn't really hunt him. That's his shed.
Okay.
Right there.
Yep.
Found it that winter, and then he blew up quite a bit. And I had pictures of him through the summer, just kind of random down in this bottom. And so we kind of picked out a set. He was going into private land up in some crop fields, from what I figured. He was feeding beans, corn, and then he come in this, like, it was old it was on the public old pasture ground that the state bought up, and it overgrowed with, just thickets, autumn olives and briars, and then I figured he was probably going up this finger up into the hardwood to bed, but I was getting pictures of him down this bottom when he was coming out of the crop field. So I had a spot picked out where I was going to put a stand. So I took my setup in. I think it was October 3rd. I had another big one in there too. That was another case. I had 2 really good. I wish I had them sheds too. They're down at my other house. I got 5-6 years of this one buck.
Wow.
I mean, sheds are just like that. He was living in the same spot as that one. And anyways, October 3rd morning, I had to wait for the wind was right on this finger. It came up out of this bottom. So I figured a lot of these bucks were going up there, going up to bed. It was just the way the whole layout, something that I've just picked up, whatever, that over the years, sixth sense, how they travel through there. And I got it. It was a cold. I don't hunt a lot in the mornings during early season, but that was October. We don't get much frost, and it was, I think, 25, 27 degrees that morning. I knew being a cold front.
October 3rd?
October 3rd,
wow.
Yeah. It was one of them cold fronts you hear about in October, or that's when the best time, especially in the morning, because they're coming late out of the feed fields, and you catch them. Otherwise, usually if it's warm early October, they're up in their beds, and isn't even no sense of hunting them in the morning. But so yeah, I snuck up this creek bottom about probably half a mile or so, 3/4 mile up this creek bottom, a little bit of water, just water like that, sand. And I went all the way around this point, went up the backside, set my stand, and couple does here and there mingling their way through. I think it was 8:20. I'll never forget that time because I looked, and here he comes up, just like planned. Here he come up, nibbling on acorns on the way up the ridge, and 25 yards away, and pulled back and nailed him and heard him crash about 80 yards away. Yeah, that was my first, big early season buck. That was in 2015.
Nice.
Because I kill a lot of them in a rut. But as far as like the first couple days of October, that was, and it was kind of, that one where I pattered him down below the camera and he was still there. And
was that, could you talk a little bit more about how the lay of the land was? You said, were you hunting on top of Finger, like on his way back up to bed?
Yeah, it was on his way up. So he was hunting he was eating in the crop fields on private land, and then there was a big, like a flat, maybe a little hills, but it was all thick autumn olive, just overgrown 30-year-old cattle pasture. The state bought up, and that was like his transition between, his feeding areas, and the big timber was to the south. So he'd work his way through that old pasture ground, and then he went up this one finger. It was a wooded, timbered finger, and I was probably halfway up this finger before it got to the top, and leveled off. It was a spot where I wanted to get high as I could for wind stability, because on my backside was with a west wind, northwest wind, it blew over a great big bottom, and he was coming out of the south, or coming out of the north working south, and I had a west wind blow me over this finger to the east, and I didn't want to get up too high. The wind would have been better up high, but then the finger started widening out, and then less chance. Where I was, it was high enough where I had good wind stability, but the finger was narrow enough where they come right up there, and I mean, it just played out perfect. He just come right up there, and yeah, then I put up a stand there. Well, last time I was up in there 2 years ago, put a stand. Some stands I'll set. My good stands I'll set October. I think in Iowa we got to have, a week before season and down a week or so after season. Some of them, I'll just take some of the cheap stands. If it's a good spot, I'll set it and leave it there. Or, I got the portables, hang and hunt. I got the Lone Wolf and, some lightweight stands. And but, yeah, so 2 years ago I go back in there. I had to come in a different direction. I walked a mile back into that stand I left in October. It was a rut hunt. Get back there, and the top of the tree fell over. My stand was crushed, and, yeah. It was like, that's the stand I killed him out of, too.
Oh, man. That's some bad,
well,
bad luck.
The same tree anyway. But
that's funny.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about when did you kill your archery buck last year?
November 5th.
And then was the other one early muzzleloader?
Yep, early muzzleloader. I don't know the exact, maybe October 15th or something. Killed him. That hunt. It was our early muzzle seasons it's usually in the middle of October during the so-called October law. Yeah, I don't know, everybody's mixed opinions about the October law. I think the bucks just don't hole up and disappear. They're just, they're just more, I think they're more if there's acorns, they're more in the oak timbers, eating acorns. They don't go far from their bed that time of year. You got to have a cold front to get them out of their bed. But they're still moving in the October law, and our muzzleload season always is in that week. And I've got muzzleloader tags every year since I've been out. That was an early muzzleloader buck right there.
That's a tank.
Yeah, and that one behind, that smaller one behind you was an early muzzleloader. Yep. And then I got a couple big ones down at my farm too. I got early muzzleloader, but yeah, that one this year. So, I think. I might have hunted at my farm maybe that weekend. Maybe that weekend I hunted at the farm. Well, it got to be I took a couple days off work. I think it was a Wednesday or Thursday. It was really warm that day, and I knew they wouldn't be around my food plots at all. So I said, I'm going down. This is, the piece. That's where I shot him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or that's where I shot them. Both of them were in that piece. And, I went down there. I thought, well, I'm just going to hike back in there, get kind of real close to their bedding area. You go back in a mile, there's an oak flat back in there on the bottom. You got all the big hills. The state land the public land only comes out a little bit, and then it's like huge acreage of private. That's another thing I look for on public land. If there's big tracts of private land adjoining
That's one owner?
Yeah, one owner. A couple of these bucks. That's one of my better hunts. It's received a lot more pressure over the last 2-3 years, so I haven't been down there as much, but it's a dang good area. There's just such massive acreage up in the hills of private land, and them bucks, especially bow season, they don't know boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Especially back when there wasn't much pressure, they'd just be done. Now, if it gets a little bit, every year's different because you get non-residents. If you get a big flow of non-residents in there, it pushes the bucks back up. But so anyway, back to that hunt. It was warm, so I thought, well, they're not going to come to my food plots. I headed down there. I was going to go back to that big oak flat mile back in, and I'm on my way out. I get probably 3/4 of the way there, walking down this old logging trail, and up ahead there's like I call a lagoon, like a man-made creek back in the middle of the woods back in there, timber, and I just seen a deer move, so I just froze, and it looked like he got up out of his bed on the edge of this creek bank, lagoon, and I just froze, and then he kind of had his head down, and I could see 2 spikes like that. Something like that. I said, well, that's just a spike horn, and I kind of just froze. I didn't know for sure. He had his head down, I just see 2 spikes, and so I'm glassing him, and then he just disappeared. So I figured he was right on the edge of this lagoon. He got up out of his bed. I was running late. It was probably 4 o'clock in middle of October. It's dark. At 6:37. I was running late, and he disappeared. I just stood there a little bit, nothing. So I just slowly. The wind was in my favor. It was a west wind, and so I just slowly creeped forward. Went 10 feet, glassed. 10 feet, glassed. Nothing. All of a sudden, there he pops up on the opposite creek bank. This lagoon was like probably 50 feet wide. It had that much water. I was kind of shocked. He must have walked across it. And all of a sudden, I seen that spike horn. He must have had his head down and his G2s were showing. I said, holy crap, he's a shooter.
Yeah.
I hurried up and verified it with the binoculars. I flipped them up. He was probably 60, 70 yards. I verified it, and wow, put the muzzleloader up and shot. And it acted like a good hit. He kind of bolted. His tail was down. He took off running, and then I lost sight of him. We had 50, 60 yard lost sight of him, and but when he went around where I lost sight, his tail was wagging pretty hard, and usually that's sign of a fatal hit. But I wasn't sure. I didn't want to go in and jump him and take any, because I didn't really know. Take any chances. I would have had to go way around this whole waterway, so I decided to go get help, come back the next morning and go in. And we went went around the long way, and he was laying right where I last seen him. And, yeah, he was a tank. He was, low 160s buck and 10-point.
Yeah, 10-point frame.
Yeah.
That 160.
Yeah, that wasn't him, but it's the one
down
at my farmhouse. Okay. Yeah.
Got it.
And so yeah, that was that. Which that wasn't much skill except for be able to shoot
right
good.
place at the right time.
Yeah, not being I was patient. I didn't run in there when I seen him. I just stopped and froze, and I until I verified exactly what it was. It was more patience but yeah, just walking back to my stand, and sometimes luck Sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah, a lot of people sitting on the couch October 15th. So
Yeah. So then the bow, the archery buck, yeah, that. Like I said, I knew there was a really big deer in the area, and I went after this one, and I walked probably 3/4 mile back in along some creeks to get to this spot. And it was a north wind, so I had to get on the south side of this timber along this creek. No wind kind of come down through this creek bottom in the middle of the timber in this forest. And well, anyways, that morning I just kept seeing bucks. They were coming out of the south. Kind of, there was that was another place. I was kind of up, within a couple hundred yards of private land. The bucks are coming out of that private land and then working this public land edge. They were coming out of the south and working their way. And I had a couple smaller ones come by me, but then I seen the one I ended up shooting, the following day. This was on the 4th. I seen him across. I said, wow, that's a good deer. He has a lot of points. I didn't have any pictures of him to that point, but when I pulled my cards that day, I had him on my camera. He'd been working in there. So anyways, yeah, I tried rattling him and grunting. He just wouldn't respond, and I didn't see. I sat there all day that day. It was cold. It was raining. I was wet. It was just a long day. I sat all day long and then my phone wouldn't work down there. So my text would work. I text my son because all the deer are coming out of the north corner. Yeah, north corner. And I text him. I said, what's the wind's going to be tomorrow? Because my weather wouldn't come up. He said southeast. I said, wow, that is perfect for where I seen all them bucks coming out all day. I seen them coming out of that north corner. I said, southeast wind. I can get tucked down in that corner, and if they do the same thing tomorrow morning, I'll be set up. So actually, the deer movement petered off about hour 4 dark, and I got down all my stuff, took my lone wolf steps over there. I found a tree. It was getting pretty dark, but I found a tree down in that corner with kind of like a creek to my back and kind of where I thought these deer were coming out. I would have been in front. And I got set. By the time I got set up, it was dark. I marked it on my Onyx maps and went back in the next morning and got set up. It was kind of spitting rain and cold at November 5th. And I was seeing probably 150-inch 9-point running around. Actually, it's only the second time I seen him. Sitting there maybe 8 o'clock. He was chasing a doe around, and he actually came in about 60 yards away. He bred a doe right in front of me. He got her cornered in this brush pile, and he bred her. I seen it once or twice in my life, but never, always way out in the field or something. This was right in front of me. I seen it. But I wasn't going to shoot him because, I had other bucks in mind. He was a nice buck, 150-some-inch 9-point.
Camera's shaking his head over there.
And the morning drug on, not too much action except for him. Kind of petered rain off and on, and I'm cold. And I think at about noon, I just got down. I had a camera behind me in the creek. 100 yards away. I said, I got to stretch, just, I could sit all day, but some days I got to get down just for a minute and stretch. I got down. I went and pulled this camera down there in a creek, and I brought it right in front of me. I went and placed it in a tree 20 yards in front of me. I said, well, even for today, I'm going to keep it here because that's where a lot of these bucks are traveling. I set that camera up. That broke up the midday a little bit, got back in my stand. I think about 3 o'clock. I seen something or heard something up on the ridge. Actually, it was up on private land. I heard something up there. Then I was only 60 yards off of the private land fence on public, but I could see up the ridge there, and I started glassing up there, and I seen a tree moving around. I could just get bits and pieces of antlers up there, so I knew something was up there. I couldn't tell how big. So I thought, well, it's up there. I'll try rattling. So I might have tried grunting first, maybe, because usually I start out kind of, slow, not just bash antlers together. Start out slow, see if I can get response. and I don't think nothing. But yeah, once I hit the rattling horns, all of a sudden this 3-year-old, I don't know, 8-point or something, don't really remember, 130-inch deer come running down the hill. And then he started circling behind my tree in the creek, and I thought he's going to win me, but I look, here comes 2 more bucks down the hill. One was that 150-some inch 9-point, and I look behind him, there's the buck I wanted, that one I seen the day before that I ended up getting. But yeah, the 2 of them are coming down there. So I got 3 bucks coming into me on a rattling sequence, and this young one's starting to circle behind me, and my bow, I left my bow on the hook because this young buck, so I got bucks everywhere. My bow's behind me on the tree. I don't know how you camera guys do it sometimes. I'm worried about my bow. And then my rattling horns, I'm caught with them. I'm trying to put them between my legs because I don't want to move, trying to reach my bow. And anyway, so yeah, this little buck, I'm watching these other 2 come down. The big one's in the back, and then they're coming down the private, and then they're all into the public by then. The little one, he snorts. He gets behind me, snorts. He runs right underneath me and up the bottom.
You think he smelled you?
Oh yeah, he did smell me. But so then I thought, well, game over. Well, the bucks were just so wound up. They, that time of year rut, they just act stupid, And I think they just thought bucks fight sometimes and snorted each other or whatever. They seen him run, and the 9-point got a little suspicious. He actually came down within 25 yards, and he spotted me because I'm sitting in just a skinny little tree just, out in the middle. He spotted me and looked up at me, is watching me, and then, then I'm just, going into meltdown because he's watching me. The first one snorted, and there's a big one still 45 yards away. And he hadn't looked. He's looking at all the commotion of the other deer. He hadn't spotted me in the tree yet. And finally this 9-point got nervous, and he bolted up the frickin' bottom. So there's that big one left at 45 yards and a bunch of briars, and, I just totally melted down. And he's kind of in some thick stuff, and he's, looking, kind of quartering to me. I said, I can't take this shot, and I'm waiting. And he finally turned. And I still not the best shot, but he was turned broadside. As he turned, you could tell he was getting ready to go back up the hill. And I shot. Didn't see my arrow. He kind of bolted, but then he slowed to a trot, went back up in the hill into the private land. And I didn't think I hit him, but I wasn't positive. So I'm just watching him, glassing him. You look for any indication of a hit. And I didn't, it didn't feel like I hit him. There was picker bushes, everything in the way. I might have deflected or whatever. But so, yeah, he disappeared, and I thought, oh, great. There I flubbed that one up, And so, yeah, I bet you I didn't wait 10 minutes. I said, what the heck? He never did see me. He was watching the other bucks. They were the ones seeing me and smelled me. He didn't know he was looking at all the commotion. He just got nervous when the other bucks. I said, I'll try rattling again. I rattled, and I'm looking up the hill, where he went. All of a sudden, out of the corner of my up this bottom comes this buck just plowing up running right at me, like something you see in a TV show in Texas where they just come running right at. And I look, and it's him. He must have went up and then kind of circled back down to draw, and he come in the bottom at me. I mean, he was coming full tilt right at me, and I'm like, wow, I got a second chance at this deer. And he got to 20 yards, turned broadside, and then I seen his nose went up because that's where I placed that camera. Ended up I had that camera. I put it out there at noon, had pictures of him coming right in, had perfect pictures of him, seconds before I shot him. And, yeah, he turned broadside. He put on the brakes because he smelled something, probably either my thermals were moving around or whatever. But, yeah, and I let him have it, watched him fall in 80 yards. And, yeah, I was pretty
So clean miss first time.
Yeah.
Rattled him back in.
Yeah.
20-yard chip shot.
Yeah.
You can't beat that.
I put a lot of skill into finding that deer.
Yeah.
It was kind of luck. I got a second shot at him,
Yeah.
Or another lucky thing. Every hunter needs a little luck on their side once in a while.
Absolutely. What that deer score? Do you remember roughly?
Just roughly 178 I came up with. He had, 16 scoreable tines maybe. He had 10 and a quarter or 10 and a half inch brow tines. He had splits on both brows. He had I don't some of it. He had 2 or 3 other I think both his G2s had splits, and maybe a G3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was, and then he had 6 on one side. Yeah, had a lot of points, and I think he was a 4-year-old deer too. I could only imagine, what he would look like as a 5 or 6-year-old, a deer with that much. He had a tight frame. He wasn't, but he just had tons of points, and that's kind of, what pushed his score. He had so many scoreable points and them huge brows, and yeah, and yeah, it was best year I ever had. And then I went home or not home, but went back to Michigan for Christmas, and I said, well, I got to get out of here. Sorry, Ma. My mom was there the day after Christmas. I said, I got to head back to Iowa and do some hunting. And so, yeah, my brother was coming out. My dad was they didn't have tags. My brother wanted to do some scouting. He applies for non-resident tags, comes out whenever he gets bow tag. And my dad just likes, if he has a ride, he don't like driving out here as much anymore. And he's 78 years old this week or next week, but he loves coming out. And yeah, he come out with my brother. Another friend, Rick Fair, came out with him, and we all came out day after Christmas. Stayed up at my farmhouse down at my property, and I had a landowner's tag left. I filled both of my statewide tags, and I had a Spartan cell camera on this food plot, and I think one of my Exodus I had a couple still cameras for backups. And on something like that, I usually have, I don't rely on that cell cam. I'll have a backup one. And I was 2 or 3 nice bucks were coming in. We had a real cold winter last year, so we had a lot of snow, and 2 or 3 nice bucks. And my buddy for Maximum Outdoors, Steve Noble, he wanted to film. He was itching to get and film me. I told him I had some nice bucks. He was going to come out that evening and film me. Usually, same thing. Like early season, I don't hunt in the morning because the deer are already out in the fields and they can't get in. Especially my property set up more open areas with big ditches and draws. But we had like a 15, 20 mile an hour wind that night, and it was supposed to keep going through morning. I said, well, if this wind keeps up till morning, I might be able to not sit on the food plot where all these bucks are, but sit in one about 300 yards away. Kind of some of them mingle that way to go back into their bedding area. But the only way I'm going to even risk going into it if I got this high wind to cover my noise and the snow, stuff getting into the stand. I didn't want to, my first night out, I didn't want to, first, because I could have probably killed one of them that night. But, if the morning provided the opportunity, I wasn't going to sit in the house, So, yeah, I got up, and that wind was just a cranking. I said, I'm going to sneak into this blind a few hundred yards away. And I got in the dark. I got up to the blind. All of a sudden, deer started snorting. I had a homemade built box blind up in there, and deer started snorting. And I'm like, wow, I really blew this. In the dark, I pick up my blind. There's a deer standing right under my blind, and I just freeze. Kind of, couldn't even tell if he must have walked off. So I said, well, shoot, I got to cross a brush row, get up the ladder. I cross that brush row. There's like probably 10, 15 deer in a single file between me and the food plot, all coming my way in the dark, and they're seeing me. I'm like, Scott, you blew this whole thing. You should have just waited till evening. Yep. Now every buck's gonna know they're being hunted, and I'm real freaky about putting pressure on a deer. A lot of these deer I have killed the first time in a stand. We've never brought that up. Most deer. That's why I switch around so much. I'm constantly switching stands. The majority of these deer are all first or second time in. So, yeah. So then I said, well, all these deer see me. I'm just going up the ladder, It's still kind of dark, but there's snow, so it's kind of lit up a little. I get in that stand, deer running everywhere. And anyways, it starts getting light. I still can see deer. The food plot, I could only see it 300 yards away. I could only see about just the one edge of it because it tapered back off the hill. But I could see deer up there in the food plot still. In fact, during the hour, I seen one nice buck up there. I thought, well, I might have a chance, 8:30, or that was another one, 8:20, I think. Right around 8:20, 8:30, I look, and here comes that big buck, one I had pictures of, coming right to me. I mean, he come right out of that food plot, started working his way to me, heading back to bedding. And he got 60 yards away, and I let him have it with the muzzleloader, and he ran over to the trail and dropped right there
Nice.
on the trail, and I was able to. I was a 170-inch 10-point, the biggest one I'd taken on my farm the last 3 years. All the deer we've taken have been five. We've taken 5 bucks, 5 years old and plus, but he was the biggest score-wise. My dad took a 3-year-old that was a 150-inch deer, but all the ones me and Cody taken all been big mature deer. But yeah, he was the biggest one of the point score-wise, and just a beautiful buck. And my dad and brother was there to celebrate it. I called them right away, and they brought the truck up, was able to drive the truck up. We got pictures of, my dad and my brother and our friend Rick Fair and me all in the pictures. To me, that's part as much parting hunting as just celebrating it with family and my kids. Both of my kids, my daughter, she's killed. That was another hunt down there on public land. She was probably early 20s at the time. She'd killed 1 or 2 bucks, like 100-some inch bucks, 110. One on public in Iowa, and with a early muzzle season. Well, she had a weekend where she'd go hunting. I had a stand up in this one. It was the same area as that one and that one again, and then the one I was talking about earlier, this last year, early muzzler, where I walked up and he was by actually that same creek where I shot that one, that lagoon. We were at the head of it. I had a stand there, and I took my daughter back there in the dark, half a mile back in. I took an extra stand, and that was just a little tiny elm tree. I set my stand up next to the one I had there. She climbed up in it, and we're both there. It was foggy that morning, just starting to break light. Getting light, but the fog was kind of keeping it harder to see, and we're just still getting set up. We hadn't got everything out and dressed, and all of a sudden she goes, "Dad, there's a buck." And I look, and here comes this buck through the woods, and we're sitting down and not totally, our camp, because we always pack our stuff in, then get dressed in the stand. And I said, "Oh, shoot, we're busted sitting down, bows hanging." And that buck come in like 15 feet away, and we're in an elm tree this big around with two stands, hang on stands off it, And the buck kind of looked up at us, seen us, and luckily he was one of them bucks that didn't bolt and freak and take off. He was one of them that, you got your bucks that just freaking gone, or you got your bucks that, like, they'll back up, like, slowly sneak off, like they're being sneaky. And that's what that one did. He kind of just started backstepping a little bit, and then he as he backstepped a little bit, and then he turned. That was my daughter stood up like she was a professional, and she never shot a big buck, a few does and a couple little ones, but yeah, she stood up just like on key when that thing turned, and it was probably 10, 12 yards, and it was just slowly stepping, and I grunted with my mouth and stopped it, and she smoked it,
Nice.
22-year-old girl. She smoked it, and we watched that one fall. That was a 150-inch 10-point.
Wow, on public.
Yeah, on public.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you find a lot of these deer coming from some of the same pieces or same areas? And it sounds like most of them you have multiple years of history with, too.
Yeah.
Whether it's shed antler or pictures or.
Yeah, most of my bucks, a lot of them, that's that one piece I was hunting a lot for years. We took a lot of bucks off that. Now it's getting a little more pressure. That buck up, I used to hunt a lot. This was a separate piece. I used to have permission to cross a piece of private to get into this spot. And then we just, the she was an older lady. She lost her husband, and then said she was getting kind of senile. You know, when I used to go in there, I used to take my son. Oh yeah, it's all right, you can go in there. But then when I stopped in again, well, no, I don't let anybody walk through there no more. So we kind of, you know, if I had to go back into that spot, we had a long walk. So that was a good spot, but I petered out of there just because we couldn't access it.
Yeah.
I do. That's one way I do get into some spots like this buck here. That is a spot where I access it. I've had permission from an older fella for years. You know, it saves me a lot of walk, and I access through his land to you know, get back into. But yeah, there's a lot of my bucks. That was on a totally separate. That was on a huge tract of timber. I hunted a couple years because I had some giants bucks. You know, much bigger. That was one of the bigger public land bucks. I hunted 100 and mid 180s. Somebody told me the neighbor shot it on private land later that year, shotgun season or something, was in the mid 180s. He was a 6x7 or just a massive heavy rack. Wow. And I hunted. I had Bachelor group of him. That 180s. I had 4 or 5 in a Bachelor group. That was it. Summertime pictures occasionally. And, you know, they were in there all, you know, a lot of people say them summer pictures aren't no good, but I've had a lot of bucks. You know, some of them take off, but a vast majority, they'll be in that, especially in hunting in the rut. You know, you just never know. You might not be able to pattern them, but they're there. Mm-hmm. You know, you put your time in, most of them, you know, and he come by me and, same thing. I was sitting in a stand and I don't know, mid-morning. I do a lot of all-day sits. Mid-morning, I heard a commotion out of this. I was sitting pretty close. I was probably within 50, 60 yards of the private land to the south. He come busting out of that thick private land stuff. Well, I seen some does, smaller bucks. There was like 5, 6 bucks all on this one doe. He ran right under my tree stand. I'm like, whoa, he ran right underneath it. And I'm like, that thing's huge. I mean, he was 5 feet away from it on a full bore tilt. I think that was like November 15th. So it was right in the middle of the doe breeding, you know. Mm-hmm. And he stopped 40 yards away, you know, just kind of standing off with that doe. Well, my wind was blowing right at him and the doe. But he was so, you could tell he was smelling me, but he was so in tune to that doe. Mm-hmm. He did not want to leave her. You could see him sniffing, and he'd kind of glance. I was hidden in a monster oak tree. He couldn't see me, but he knew something was there. He was 43 yards away. I usually don't like shooting that far. I'm more of a close range shooter, but you know, I'd practice so I can shoot, but. Yeah. And he was getting nervous, you know, but he didn't want to leave that doe, and I ended up pulling back, and, you know, I ended up shooting him too. He was a little bit harder. I hit one lung, and we ended up, I think he went 150 yards or so, but we found him. And, yeah, some of them are on different tracks. I have 2 or 3 tracks that I primarily focus on quite a bit, where I get quite a few of my deer, just because I know, you know, lack of pressure. But then some years I'll be you know, like where I killed that one last year. I had cameras at 2 big ones I was after. 180-inch deer, 2 of them, 180s. You know, we're in there heavy the year before, and I couldn't get camera of them at all. So I only went in there once or twice last year. You know, some years the same areas can be hot, and then they just, you know,
just got to pivot and find where
they're
at. It sounds like you do find quite a bit of success during the rut. What is your ideal placement during? Like, where are you setting up during the rut? Are you just relying on some of those cameras and knowing there's big deer in the area, and then where and how are you setting up?
Most of my rut stands, you know, I got lucky that one this year shot him November 5th. I would say the vast majority. I mean, this is a different subject. Vast majority of my deer I've killed 2-3 bucks on Veterans Day. What's that, 11th or
10th or 11th usually.
Yeah, 10th, 11th. I've killed some 14th, 15th, and usually I'm tagged out. But you know, my cameras more and more. I'm picking up some monsters that 3rd week of November. I usually tagged out by them, but you know, I would say that's one of the best times to kill a big one. But I focus on a lot of pinch points, funnels in timber.
Mm-hmm.
Way back in timber, with there's not pressure. If you get in an area that's pressured, yeah, they're probably not going to run through because they, the big ones aren't going to run unless they're hot on a doe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at terrain features. I'm just trying to think of some situations. Like this year we got this year we got a setup. If I got a stand like where I killed that buck, I called that the Booner Ridge just because I told my son I'm gonna kill a Booner there this year, and I did. I've had 2 or 3 stands like that. You got that sixth sense that this is the spot, and like we got a couple stands this year that. Well, I got a couple scenarios. One is it's a huge bedding area on top of a ridge in big timber, and these fingers come out of here. There's a finger here, all across there's 4 or 5 fingers. They go down into a creek, and then they ended up working their way to some alfalfa fields, and just this finger, I know them bucks, this stuff is so thick they can't even get around to this side. They're all going to come around this bedding area. All the major trails, I go up a lot in March February, March, when I can see the deer sign. Now it's kind of tough, and I watched all these deer trails come out of this thick stuff. It's so thick they're avoiding this. They're all around and taking this first finger down. So it's a matter of me reading sign, and they're going to go down that finger down in, work their way, rut, whatever. It's just one of them travel ways. Another spot that I actually were the day before I killed the big one with the bow this year, where I was sitting on the south side along that creek when I was spotting them all across, and I ended up moving my stand the next day and killing them. Well, I kept a camera there. A lot of my cameras I'll let soak. From July till the following, shed season. I try to get them out of the woods by March when the shed hunters go through and just take inventory and clean them up. But yeah, I'll let them cameras soak through the whole. Like I killed my deer November 5th, so all them cameras were set in place, and I pulled them in March. I was able to get so much inventory off of them cameras. It was unbelievable. Like where I sat in that ditch. Like especially that third week of November, there was 2 or 3 big mature bucks that used this same trail, crossing this creek every day, and I got 2 stand locations all set up, ready to go this year, and and I've already sat down there last year once because a north wind will shoot right up that draw, and I already got that one buck on camera this summer in the same location, so I know if I don't know. I didn't have cameras in there early, but these 2 or 3 big ones showed up, November 15th and were consistent, right to December 1st. I can get down in there with the right wind, and it's on a creek. So I'm coming up where I got this spot where I'm going to put the stand. I come up out of a creek. I'm leaving no scent and climb up in this tree. Wind's going to blow unless they go up the creek further downwind and, get wind of me. Then it might be over. But, my camera tells me everything. Third week of November, third week of November, all these big bucks are using this one creek crossing, and if I haven't tagged out by them, I can go up in there third week, and I can probably, have a good chance of killing one of them big deer. So my cameras tell me a lot, but a lot of pinch points, like that creek crossings with a good wind. The problem when you get down low, wind swirls. You got to get in a situation like that. It's a big long creek through the whole forest, but it's a few hundred yards long where that wind, if you hunt like if the creek is north and south, a north wind should stay pretty consistent pushing down that whole creek. You can't hunt it with a east or west wind because then it's bouncing off the hills and swirling around. So creek crossings are excellent if you got a stable wind.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I need to go to you out there. You grab me a drink, please, some water.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is there anything else you'd like to cover here yet this evening? I mean, we'd hate to eat up any more of your evening.
Yeah.
So.
I'm free.
Perfect.
Yeah.
No, it's been great talking with you, and it's clear that you do a good job of finding good deer and then taking the time to hopefully arrow one.
Yeah. I'm not like I said before, I'm good at storytelling and I know how to kill deer. I'm not as smooth as like Dan Infalt and Aaron and all them. They do that stuff for a living, so I get kind of nervous, but yeah, I just love doing it. People ask me, and I've turned down quite a few podcasts just because I get kind of nervous, but I felt comfortable with you guys, and I'm getting more comfortable with, a couple other guys. So, just something I'm slowly working my way into. I enjoy telling my stories.
Yeah.
And, it's great to get – I've had some people get on, well, you shouldn't be, why you talk so much. There's enough public land hunters, but it isn't about, I've never been a selfish person. It's more about, like, promoting the sport. There's options out there for us public land hunters. There's so many. Private lands getting so hard to find. And young kids. It's good to tell these kids and that there's opportunity out there for them. I've had a couple friends, neighbors. Get right on me about talking about public land. Well, my land sits against public land, and you shouldn't be talking about it. We already got enough people in Iowa, and it's like, you got to look at the whole I lost one friend over it. I said, you got to look at the whole picture. It's about promoting the sport, telling there's young people, there's places, opportunity to hunt. It isn't about you and your piece of ground. We're losing hunting numbers across the USA. It's hunter numbers, it's about promoting kids in this sport. Kids don't know where to go. Young people don't know where to go. There's opportunity on public land. You could go to a piece of public land pretty much anywhere, if you put in the homework and work hard. That's what I have. I work my butt off, it just my body's sore and I'm getting that. That's kind of why I bought a piece of private. It's that public land's a lot of work. I'm getting that age where I'm slowing down. But
well, hitting public land 47 out of 52 weeks. I think you're probably in a strong minority of people that there's majority of people just don't put in that much work or that much scouting, and it's clear. Just if we're ever down on your way to the farm, we got to stop by and check out some of the deer there because we're amused by the deer here.
That's what I told Chad because I thought originally, he said when he was coming out, and I thought it was on a weekend, so I figured I could be down at my farmhouse and, I in fact, I told him I'd take him around, it was in the daylight, I was going to drive him around my farm. I got a 240-acre farm and show them my setup, my food plots, and you guys too. If you're ever back down, especially if it's on a weekend, I'd be happy to, as long as it isn't during hunt season. Then I don't like going out there. But this time of year, I'm more welcome to take. I'm always having friends come by.
I'm sure we'll be out here during the Iowa Deer Classic sometime. Maybe maybe we could try to coordinate it sometime.
Or come out on a. Usually that's about time we do a shed hunt. Usually the week after we do a shed hunt. First year not first year, 2 years ago on my farm, because a lot of the neighbors' food plots were gone. I fenced in a lot of my food plots, so I had a lot of deer drop. We found 60 sheds on my 240 acres. So over the shed season, this year it was down because we lost our food early, and there was a standing cornfield a mile away. But we still found 40 of them this year.
You need an extra set of eyes. You need an extra set of eyes. I know, guys.
But yeah, it's fun. I live for deer hunting, and that's what makes me tick and gets me through the work week every week. And I don't know what I'd do without it. Be lost.
Right. No, that's really cool, and we can't thank you enough for taking us into your home and sitting down and talking with us on a. What is that, Tuesday?
Yeah.
On a Tuesday evening.
Oh, that's fine. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Scott, where could they find you if you want people to find you? Where can they find you? Or you could just say you don't want to be found.
I got a Facebook page that a lot of people follow me on that. Just Scott Buckley. Yeah. It's not a business page or nothing, so there's a limit, and that limit's getting up there, so I don't take the people I used to, but sometimes I'll if I see mutual friends with Hunting Public and
Yeah.
Dan Infalt and
Yeah.
all my people that,
Yeah.
this public land people, then
Yep.
yeah, they're a better chance of, just because, you got a limit on that, and
Yep.
it's filling up. But yeah, they can follow me on that. I should open up like Infalt has, like Hunting Beast and Hunting,
Yep.
something where you can just follow me on that. I probably will eventually as my friends list gets filled up. But yeah, they can follow me on that.
Cool. We'll link to that, so if we can send you a message too.
I'm doing more and more stuff with Maximum Outdoor TV. They're on the Pursuit channel. Wednesday nights is this year's Wednesday nights. I think 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern. Do a little bit with them, Maximum Outdoors TV. We had a bear hunt that I went on last year. Saskatchewan, me and my boys shot bears.
Awesome.
They had us on that. And then a couple clips with the host family. I was with their daughter, 13-year-old daughter. I was sitting with her in a blind when she took a probably close to 145-inch buck during youth season.
You're good luck. Just come sit with me.
That's what they said. That's why we want you to sit with her.
Yeah. Sure enough, it worked out.
But yeah, you can follow that show. I'm friends with the host there, and he'll probably be on there a little bit more. So
cool. We can't thank you enough, and it's been a pleasure.
Yep. Thank you very much. Glad having you and like sharing my stories. So
yeah, we'll have to do it again next time we're out this way.
Yeah, definitely.